uh, in the market only for about a week on this one. As I've said to some of you already, we had about 72 people sign up from all across the ecosystem, all across Australia. Yeah, so a real interest in this. By way of introduction, if you signed up to this, I imagine you've seen the LinkedIn posts and the emails and know who I am. My name is Dr. Chad Renando. I'm the Managing Director for the Global Entrepreneurship Network. Also a research fellow with the Rural Economy Center of Excellence at UniSQ. And I'm CEO for Startup Status, where we're mapping and measuring the innovation ecosystem in Australia as a not-for-profit. And I do want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are all on. Today I'm here in Ipswich on Yagara country, and pay respects for elders past, present, and emerging, particularly from the place-based initiatives that many of us are from, and just acknowledging that greater integration and alignment with First Nations is needed as we align them in with the innovation ecosystem. So thank you very much, everybody, for showing up for the very first trial of a community of practice. This was brought on, as most of you have seen from the LinkedIn post. Queensland has launched a fund to support places and precincts, innovative places and precincts across Queensland. I am not associated with Queensland's government at all, but I do believe in the project that they're doing, in so much that it's trying to build capacity and capability in existing infrastructure that's there. It is for established places and precincts to help define the strategies. Stream one is where they engage, they offer funds to engage third-party agents. And again, by declaration, I imagine I'd be considered one of those, but with the sheer volume of places and precincts, there's no way one person can handle them all. So want to create an opportunity to do a bit of a meet and greet as well for people to meet each other and connect, create a bit of a marketplace. And also, how do we do this and not just have a zero-sum game of some winners and some losers, but to create opportunities for people to collaborate, work together, learn from each other, and lift things overall. I'm going to go over just briefly some of the principles I laid out in my post, just for clarity on what I mean by a community of practice. Because I believe that we can't, the challenges that many of us face are complex and require collective action that are needed more than any one organization or institution. So some of the principles behind this, one of them is the desire to raise the tide or increase that base knowledge. How do we do the main functions of the ecosystem better together? How do we provide that clarity and understanding through the research and the mapping? How do we provide that connection and connectivity better together with each other? How do we build that capability and capacity in what we do and in our ecosystems? How do we collaborate around opportunities and collaborate for purpose around focus areas? And how do we provide that advocacy and promotion? How do we do that better together? Two, we acknowledge the competitive tension, that sometimes people are competing for funds or for members. And, it's just like we say to our startups, how do we maybe share about the cookie, but not the recipe? If there's things that you want to keep close, we respect and understand that. But we think there are things that we can learn from each other. Three, it is definitely an open marketplace. We have service providers here and third-party experts that can support, as well as hubs who can use our services, and let's create an open market for that. Four, we want to be inclusive, because innovation, as I've said before, is morally neutral. It will centralize wealth. Inevitably, it will create inequality if left to its own devices. And so how do we be intentional about reaching out to the peripheries, to those who quite often are overlooked through innovation? And finally, we want to integrate into the existing ecosystem. Some people reached out and said, Chad, what about these other communities that are forming and whatnot? Absolutely, join them. And also, and I see Kate's on the call. And so we'll throwing to Kate here a little bit later in the meeting with Flexible Workspace Australia, which is a peak body for spaces and places in Australia, which we can encourage that as a voice then for advocacy and government. But what we want to do is, as a community, bring us together and say, how do we learn more and take advantage of opportunities that come up, such as the Queensland one? So that's a bit of the background on intent. And again, a lot of you know my background as far as doing my PhD research on the role of incubators and innovation hubs on contributing to resilience, particularly in regional and periphery communities. And then I've kind of crafted my life around supporting that broadly within the innovation ecosystem as a vocation as much as a profession. So that's it for me. What I'd love to do, and keeping in mind time, I would love to go around the room as a community of practice. We are a community, and hear from you. And if you could do me a favor, please, and introduce yourself. I want to know kind of who you are, where you're from, both in your organization or what you represent, as well as geographically on the map, and what you're hoping to get out from today. That would be great. And just for efficiency, I'll call you out and we can just go around my Zoom screen. So Max, I might start with you.
All right. I'm Max, based out of Singapore, lived in Asia the last 10 years. I design and build research facilities for my main living, but I'm also the co-founder of Life Science Incubator here in Singapore, an agnostic space for life science, biotech, food tech startups where we provide, or where the operators provide the labs and all the equipment so they can really, without strings attached, no venture capitals, nobody wants the equity or anything, they can really grow, even with little funding. And we're expanding to Brisbane sometime this year, so we're just finalizing the plans. So quite glad to connect to the folks here in the call, and we have spoken to a few of the institutions there already, but quite hyped to be the first international outreach for LSI to be in Brisbane.
Awesome, Max. Welcome. Look forward to seeing you around town. Thanks for that. Richard, over to you, please.
Hi. My name's Richard Causey. I'm based in Canberra. I work as an advisor to startups and scale-ups, and as part of that, I've run one of LaunchPic's incubators a few years ago, and I support the Canberra Innovation Network both as a mentor and as subsequently as an advisor. After that, my big area of interest is actually what the hell does incubation mean? There is such a degree of and how do we build out that to being a useful process for people that wish to understand and create businesses, and then how it feeds into next parts of the ecosystem that we may or may not rely on, acceleration and growth, and how this all plays together.
Yeah, awesome, excellent. Welcome, Richard, and yeah, good question, and love the Canberra scene down there as well. Yeah. Kelly, over to you.
Hi, my name's Kelly. I work for ISHWN, Integrated Innovation Network at the University of Newcastle. And at Honeysuckle here, we run an incubation hub for startups, which is agnostic as well with industry, but also focuses on a lot of tech startups. And we have health startups and femtech. We run accelerator programs, female founder programs, and have a co-working space as well. We work with the university as well to help researchers commercialize their research. Work with things like On Prime and On Accelerate with CSIRO and all those programs. So I'm just found out about this yesterday, so I'll just jump in and see what's happening in the space all over the place.
Awesome. Excellent. Welcome, Kelly. Love the diversity. Well done. Marcia, over to you, please.
Hi, I'm Dr. Marcia Matuszek. I'm a QT in QT entrepreneurship. I run the pre-accelerator called Growth Lab. My PhD was on entrepreneurial learning within the context of business incubators and accelerators. So I have a lot of that sort of background knowledge, and I'm not quite sure what I want to get out of this, but I think it's a great idea.
So thanks for that, Marcia. Sam, over to you.
Thanks. Sam here from Deakin University in Melbourne. I'm mainly an academic doing a lot of research around ecosystem and all things around regional locational factors affecting innovation and entrepreneurship. But recently I got a task to redesign and redevelop the university incubator we have at Deakin. So I was very interested to just see what are the state of the art in Australian landscape when it comes to university incubators and at large ecosystem.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for that, Sam. Look forward to learning as you design and open. Leah, over to you, please.
Hello, I'm Leah Lucas. I'm the program manager for the CSIRO our collaboration lab at Linfield. We host and support a whole lot of deep tech companies to commercialize their research. And I'm most interested in meeting more people within the network, but also to understanding how better we can support and encourage our researchers to commercialize and to work more on the global scale.
So thanks for that, Leah. Selena, over to you.
Hello, everyone. That's nice to go after Leah because we know each other very well. I'm Selena Boyfield from CSRO. I used to work out at the Linfield Collaboration Hub, which is fantastic little community. I now work for the ON program as an ecosystem manager. And it's lovely to say hello to Kelly over at I2N and say hi to Siobhan up there as well. So I'm really keen to sort of, just really reach out to the ecosystem and work together, and exactly what you were saying before, Chad, and how we can work together, realizing that there are areas of competition, but I'm really keen to collaborate and upskill. So I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Selena. I'm a big fan of the ON program. Cassandra, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cassandra Casalino, and we are in beautiful sunny Townsville today. We are from the Smart Precinct. This is Dr. Lydia Canovas. I'll let her talk to you a little bit about what we do. We support innovators and entrepreneurs in the region. We have an incubator. We run several accelerator programs here locally. And we have a bit of a hybrid model. So we support traditional businesses as well. We're really passionate about helping traditional businesses innovate, as well as supporting the commercialisation of research. Why I'm here today, really excited just to collaborate, learn more, share the knowledge that we all have, and to improve the working environment for all of us. Over to you, Lydia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lydia. I'm the Business and Investment Lead here at Smart Precinct. I finished my PhD studies in 2020 about measuring the performance of business incubators and accelerators around the world, and also understanding the socioeconomic impact in the region where they are located. And I'm here today because I'm very keen to connect with all of you and to learn from your experience and explore collaboration opportunities, because we believe it's about connecting and collaborating instead of competing, even when we understand and acknowledge that we all have our competing areas and strategies. I think we will probably have a bigger impact if we collaborate and we explore that further.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to see Townsville represented. Been watching what's happened up there for some time. And yeah, I think Chris will be able to have a bit of a yarn with you on measuring impact and PhDs. He's just starting his journey. So look forward to that conversation when we get to Chris. Philip, over to you, please.
Okay, my name's Philip. I wear two hats in this conversation. I'm a PhD student about to submit on digital ag and the role and value of data and the value proposition of digital ag to farmers. I'm also a co-founder of Ocean Farmer, which is a platform for seaweed, mussel and oyster farmers. I started that in Batemans Bay, regional New South Wales, and it's going through to Series A with customers all over the world. So I wear researcher, startup founder hat. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Philip. Peter, over to you.
My name is Peter Laurie. I do a bunch of stuff around the startup ecosystem. I'm normally in a role which is entrepreneur in residence or mentor in residence, which I've been doing at River City Labs since it opened. So for the last 11 years, a fair bit into Melbourne and a bit into Cairns over the last couple of years as well. So probably more on the practitioner side than the care and feeding of people in a space side. I'm more the scary part of that.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. I'm sure maybe some startups think you're scary, but I know that a lot of incubators really appreciate you. Trung, over to you, please.
Well, thanks, Chad. Yeah, Trung No, a background in neuroscience, so still do with one sort of big toe doing R&D, but the other one out in the ecosystem, connecting, learning, sharing. I know Chad would know I spam him with, hopefully with a lot of high value stuff that he can pass on to his massive network and channels, and here to sort of see how I can help out.
Trung is one of my favorite spammers in the entire world. Love him to death. Susan, over to you, please.
Thank you. Susan Feitosa. I'm here from RMIT in Melbourne, and we engage and we feed lots of our researchers into the ecosystem. So CSIRO on, We've had a lot of people going over there. And Sam, it's great to see you, even though you left us and you've gone on. So basically to really learn and engage within the ecosystem and really learn from people who are leading. We also are going to be launching in October a discovery to device prototyping facility, which will also help within the ecosystem as well as having our own accelerator and living labs and some simulation and AR, VR labs as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Susan. So much going on. Pete, over to you, please.
Hi,
Pete
folks.
Cohen.
G'day. Darlene from Melbourne here. Also wear a few hats. So one of them, like Susan, I'm at RMIT. I'm in the fairly newly formed Centre for Future Skills and Workforce Transformation. So yeah, looking at skills more broadly, obviously innovation in the ecosystem is part of that. I also work as an innovation consultant, a startup consultancy called Vibrance, but associated with Strategizer. You're probably familiar with their tools. So I do some work directly with them and coaching for them as well. And it's that intersection that I'm really interested in today. You know, when we go into corporates, they're often, you know, sort of falling over themselves, trying to work out how to innovate, how to partner, how to bring things to market. And I see that there's a need and opportunity to better understand how to interact with the ecosystem of what's there. So that's me.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Pete. Anna, over to you.
Hello, I don't know if you can see me. I seem to be having some trouble with my camera. Anna Fitzgerald. I'm the chair of the mentor team at Genesis, which is the incubator at Sydney University. I also do some mentoring with the Ministry of Awesome in New Zealand, which was grown out of Christchurch to try to help rebuild the city. I am an ex-founder. I'm also a startup advisor. So I do a fair bit of fractional CMO/innovation consultancy work with a number of different startups, usually in the technology space, but not exclusively. And I'm an angel investor. I am absolutely passionate about collaboration and cooperation. I think based on the years I've had as a founder and mentoring startups, it takes a village to raise a startup. And if we can create one big village in Australia and access all of our resources and the talent that we have, I think it will hugely benefit the ecosystem. So whatever I can do to help, I'm there.
Very much grateful, Anna. Thank you so much. A lot of hats you wear, and yeah, I'll stand with you in that belief. Excellent. Kate, who keeps popping in and out in order to kind of shift further down on my list. Over to you.
Oh, thanks so much, Chad, and lovely to be here. I am Kate Desano. I'm the co-chair of Flexible Workspace Australia, which is the 2-year-old industry association representing the flex sector in Australia. I'm also the owner and founder of WorkLife, which is a network of regional co-working spaces on the south coast of New South Wales, with locations in Berry and Coaldale and Picton at the moment. And I used to be the head of partnerships with Startup Oz for a number of years. So in particular, my interest in this network is seeing if I can make sure that there is better engagement from the university operators of incubators and accelerators in Flexible Workspace Australia as the peak body for the co-working industry, and also with my kind of research and policy passion hat on to be able to build a really good case for the value of flex spaces, incubators, accelerators, co-working in regional Australia. Chad and I have worked together recently on publishing the Flex Futures report, first industry report for our industry association, doing a whole bunch of speaking with organisations at the moment to try and make the case for the value of co-working in regional Australia. So particularly interested in the way in which the expectations might be lowered for what acceleration and incubation looks like with the scale and economic realities of providing these sorts of clusters and communities in regional Australia. And a pleasure to be here and see so many passionate faces. Thanks for the patience over the tech challenges. I'm sorted now.
So good, Kate. And if you can please put that link to that report in the chat, that would be great, Kate. And we'll have a yarn here after we're done with the introductions. Yeah, it's a fantastic report, and I'm not saying that because I'm in it. I read it and I thought, oh, there's heaps more fantastic things than the stuff I wrote. It's like it's really good data and stats in there. Well done. Max, over to you, please. Oh, we already did, Max. Sorry.
If
Max,
there's more than one, I did it.
No, it's all you. Your camera's off. Sorry about that. CJ, over to you.
Afternoon, everybody. You can see me all right? Yeah, camera's on. Ah, sweet. Chad, thanks for being, I'm really excited to be here. I am, yeah, like a lot of you, wear multiple hats. A serial entrepreneur, investor, and co-founder of Silicon Coast. We've been operating for about 10 years now. Collaboration's in our DNA. It just comes natural to us. It's how we started Silicon Coast back in 2014, and we continue to do so. We recently had an event here called Forward Fest as our flagship event, and we brought all those different components together. We collaborate across all the sectors and really break down those silos, which is a really important. So I think from a collaborative point of view, you know, it's the new competition. It's really important to collaborate and actually work together in this space. So I'm excited to be here. If I can help and reach out, if you want to come to the sunny coast, no trouble, always welcome.
Awesome. Excellent. Thanks for that, CJ. Sounds like we have a couch to crash on there. Hey, and just before we continue, somebody did email me and say that they had to shift off at 2:30. Did that person already speak up? Lee, is that you?
Yeah, that was me. I did speak up already as well, so all good. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. All good. Chris, over to you, please.
Hey, guys. Sorry, my camera's off. I've just got bad connectivity. So serial entrepreneur, ex-military, doing a PhD now, looking at the startup ecosystem with the goal of actually helping veterans become entrepreneurs. Really interested in seeing how you actually shape an incubator, so I can actually help my cohort actually, you know, do what they're doing in the States, where 2% of businesses are founded by veterans over there, and in Australia it's less than 1%.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Chris. Welcome aboard. And Kai, over to you, please.
Oh, sorry, let me just turn my camera. Hey everyone, my name is Kai Man. I'm a researcher turned entrepreneur. I'm one of the program managers at Incubate, which resides at University of Sydney. We run pre-accelerators. We run a pre-accelerator and accelerator as well. We also have a co-sharing space as well. I am a Kiwi, so I'm a Chinese Kiwi, and I recently moved to Australia. And I guess the point why I'm here is to kind of build connections and networks. So it feels like there's like a community collective. There's also a collective where investors come, but there seems to be a lack of a community for program managers, especially within the university. So I would love to kind of connect more with people within New South Wales and Australia wide to kind of produce this collective where program managers can come together and actually work and collaborate with everyone. But yeah, that's all.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Carmen. Appreciate it. Sylvia, have we gone to you yet?
Hi everyone, so I'm Sylvia, and serial entrepreneur, and now the founder of a network of early stage founders, investors, experts, and mentors. So what brought me to this call is that I've been like really passionate about this space, just looking for ways we can really support the startups and founders in this very early stage of the journey, and just looking for ways to collaborate so that we can bring more support to help startups at this stage of the journey, to help them progress ahead as well as to survive and thrive. So happy to meet everyone, and definitely look to discuss more moving forward. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Sylvia. Tiffany, over to you, please.
Thanks, Chad, and sorry my camera's not working. Tiffany from Sunshine Coast Council. I'm the industry development lead for digital economy and innovation. So I work with our local innovation ecosystem. CJ from Silicon Coast is one of those people I work closely with. Reason I'm attending today and wanting to be part of this community, and thanks Chad for instigating this, is to learn more about effective ecosystem building and how to create sustainable ecosystems, connect with other people, and also learn a bit more about the innovation precinct landscape.
So thanks for that, Tiffany. And Asrar.
Hi, Australia from Quality Management Australia. I've got a background in entrepreneurship and innovation management, and I have been part of textiles initiatives and been accessing Oxford Foundry, which is in England, and the Birmingham University, which has done a very good collaborative effort in marrying the industry to the education sector and vice versa. So, and the IP is being maintained. So primarily I work with the industry, government bodies and educational institutions. And my focus is commercializing research while maintaining IP. I'm in the cyberspace and we are currently creating an ecosystem Australia-wide in order to create what is available out there, what is missing, and how we can improve. And I've delivered, I've taught courses in entrepreneurship and innovation management as well as cyber. So yeah, and hope to learn from everyone else. Thank you for the opportunity.
No worries. Thank you. And thank you so much, everybody, for sharing about where you're from, what you're doing. How this works moving forward. Probably will be going around the room depending on how big these things get. Or we may break up into small rooms just so we can build that closer communities. But for this very first one, just wanted to get a sense on who we're all looking at. And again, the fact that we had such a broad interest and, from 70 people signing up to 22 showing up on the day, not unsurprising for something with a bit of a week's notice. And we'll just see how we go from moving forward. The other thing that we'll probably do in these meetings is have a conversation with somebody just to raise something that might be of interest broadly for people, as well as have somebody share a bit of content. Today, we'll be sharing a bit of content, just mostly for my thesis as a bit of a default, but we'll take turns as we go forward with different experts coming in and maybe sharing some research, sharing some insights. So maybe killing a couple of those birds with one stone. I wouldn't mind having a yarn briefly with Kate about the recent report, because Kate is a fairly significant body of work, only in that there's a bit of a deficit on real insights on incubation models across Australia. And we've had a bit of a conversation in the past on, the distinction between co-working and real estate models and flexible spaces and incubation and programming and driving innovation and government funding, and that there's a continuum, as it will, and that the lines can blur a bit. So I wouldn't mind just opening it up and saying, with the work that you did in the report, what surprised you most, and what do you feel is the most valuable coming out of the report that you just did?
Look, I think the thing that surprised me the most is just the level of kind of need and gratitude there was from operators in the sector for a push for some honesty, transparency, disclosure, and shared benchmarks to describe how the sector is performing. For all of those of you who, like I, have wandered in and out of the startup kind of space, there's a big gap between the sort of fake it till you make it narrative and selling future visions, and then the sort of gulf that creates in trust and credibility when you are trying to demonstrate the performance of different models and seek support for it. So I thought that was going to be a very difficult conversation in our industry. Occupancy levels, profitability, investment models, pricing models, all of these are measures which we need to be able to confidently agree on the metrics and and to be able to begin to trust that we are, as a collective, working in a space that is increasing at a rapid enough pace for us to be able to lift the skirts on our own operations, because collectively it will be in all of our interests. So that's been a surprise that wasn't such a hard sell, that everybody knew that already. And so that's been a kind of great shift already. And then the other thing that's been really just a sheer relief, really, is to be able to, for the first time, thanks to the incredibly detailed work that Chad did in taking our membership list, our prospects list, our historical reports of operators in various spaces, their own incredible work that you've been doing documenting entrants and exits from the ecosystem over nearly a decade now, to be able able to kind of put all of those data through the kind of sausage machine and come out with a live interactive kind of map of the ecosystem in Australia, which is classified with your kind of expertise and your understanding of the nuance of the sectors, is a really, really, really big tool. For the first time, for example, Flexible Workspace Australia is able to answer a question of what's the maximum addressable market for flex and co-working spaces in Australia, and what's the breakdown of those spaces between CBD, suburban and regional areas. What are the operating models that they're working under? How long have they been in business? What's the chance they're going to survive the next year? These are all things that with the sort of data that we've been able to pull together. So that's been one, and then maybe I'm going to sneak a last tiny one in, which is the reception of this work from our international peer organisations, so the other industry associations and peak bodies for flex spaces around the world. I thought in that kind of Australian inferiority complex, which is so baked into so many of our kind of psyches, that we would be playing catch up in this regard, and it's an amazing thing to hear from so many other peer organisations that the sort of efforts that we've been undertaking on this report and this front are actually things that the other organisations would love to be able to do and haven't done yet. So yeah, no, it's been amazing.
Great, Kate. And I want to touch base on the work that you do. Kind of set up the frame in a very easy sell for you, but I'm also very curious because we have a range of incubators on this call, as well as they're going to be watching the video after, from really small ones in regional communities, which you're very familiar with, to large, precincts, multi-year funded, to university models, to diverse. What is the value of having an advocacy voice for the incubator space to be able to say, here's the size and the needs and the common aspects across that continuum of the incubator landscape in Australia?
Look, I think the purpose of it is access to funding, access to support, appreciation and understanding of the challenges of mostly of the economics of the model. Really, the public perception of co-working, flexible workspaces, university-based programs, council-supported programs, tiny side hustles associated to incredible people wanting to share their knowledge in little niches and little places around the country. It is a complex web, and so to be able to have, I saw this year's report really as a kind of idiot's guide to the galaxy of what this industry is in Australia. And who the various players are. We went to great efforts to do funny things like a lexicon of all of the terminology and the language which is used in the sector, just so that people who are coming into it, or policymakers or investors, are able to understand what we mean when we use some of the lingo. We did really fun things like look at the different kind of jobs and skill sets and career paths, and what are the sort of roles which, like community management. I would have been like an absolute moth to the flame if I'd heard a job description in my, teens called, would you like to be a community manager? Like that would have, but there's such a poor conception of what these various roles and the various skills that required for them are out there at the moment. So I think that that through the report and through the research, we're able to start building a shared language and an ability to clearly communicate what the value and the purpose of our organisations are, and to not gloss over the kind of complexity and the nuance of all of our operating models, and to start collectively identifying as various faces of the sort of Rubik's Cube of the future of entrepreneurship, the future of work, and the future of kind of community connections. I really appreciated one of the Gus Chavez, an academic who contributed a piece for the report, did a great job of describing what we do as a Rubik's Cube, all the faces kind of connected to each other, and that there's an algorithm of sense underpinning it all, but it looks very it looks like we're all facing in different directions, but actually there's a good bit of mechanics connecting us all underneath.
It's good metaphor. Thanks for that, Kate. Like in the follow-up email, I'll put Kate's details in there. I do encourage people to engage with FWA in terms of support I know the Queensland project, which catalyzed this conversation, a lot of people in that webinar that we had, that the state put on, that I was in, they were asking, where's a list of third-party providers? Where's a list of this? Where's a list of incubators? And of course, the government can't say, well, here's a list of providers you can use, but I would love it if that list lists somewhere besides my own CRM or, my own spreadsheets kind of thing. And I think FWA would be a great source for that, of people that can actually support incubators in developing strategies and models and cost-benefit analysis and coming up with a case for funding and things like that. On that note, I am going to share a few slides from my thesis, just some high-level topics, again, just to give you guys a bit of content to chew on, and then we can kind of unpack that in the last little 10 minutes or so that we have. So I'm going to share a screen. I'm going to share two things. One is just some slides from my thesis and related work, as well as some information about the upcoming Global Entrepreneurship Congress that might be of interest. So I really just whipped this together, and hopefully everybody can see this okay. I just want to share a few things, responding a bit to some of the questions that came in. What do you mean by an incubator? So there's different ways that people look at this. Going off of the literature, technically from what's happened out of the papers that I've seen, incubator describes the large family, if you will, of things that support entrepreneurs, largely from a place-based perspective. And yes, there are virtual incubators that they talk about as well. Then you have different species in that family. So you have an innovation hub, co-working, an innovation precinct, hackerspace, makerspace, art spaces in there, accelerator programs, business center, industrial parks, business parks, precincts are also sometimes doubled up in there. And then research parks, science parks, technology parks. And the characteristics that I've seen delineate these is duration. Is it like an accelerator program where it's time-based, or is it open-ended and ongoing? How big is it? Is it a single location or virtual, or is it large and multi-site? Who is the target participant? Is it anyone in the public, or is it any entrepreneur, or do they have to be an innovation-driven, high-growth entrepreneur? What kind of support is provided? Is it handoff, self-guided, or sometimes it's like a concierge support that'll handle basic secretarial or admin, or is it hands-on and facilitated? And finally, how many brands are associated with it? So this is a very rough litmus on what I call what. Now, how that's applied in Australia, it's all over the place. People call it hub things, they call it precinct things. But in general, if we want the kind of the technical definition, this is largely what literature shows as far as the taxonomy. So what happens in an incubator? Now, I had about 380 conversations as part of my thesis across Australia, and I grabbed in what people said as they said, here's kind of what we do. And I kind of condensed all of that into what I define as core functions. Now, core functions are the things that you do to make money. This is core to my existence. When we do collaboration, I help my members, I rent out my venue, I run events, I promote on behalf of my mentors, I provide mentoring, or I have a particular focus area like a technology or industry sector. I get paid to do that stuff. There's other things I have to do the core function. Those things are internal. I need to grow my activity. I need to develop my own leadership, my new services or products. I have to manage my own internal operations, my HR, my investment, my funding, and manage my physical assets. There's other things that I do that have external influence, that what we've heard in some of the introductions around ecosystem building, where we develop talent and skills in the pipeline and build community and culture in our region. And we do ecosystem building and provide advocacy. Now, these are enjoyable, they're encouraging, we love doing it, and we often don't get paid for it. One of the risks of hubs quite often, particularly of smaller hubs, not say precincts, they need the ecosystem to exist so that they can exist, but they don't get paid to do it. So you can get caught up all this ecosystem building work and not actually running the thing I get paid for. And finally, there's things that have external concern, but I'm not really doing it, I don't touch it, like policy and core infrastructure, like digital connectivity and research into how effective these things are and international connectivity. And man, I need that, but I just don't have time because I'm so busy building my ecosystem. So this really helped to then say, well, who does this kind of work in the ecosystem and where is your split? So it's kind of a good model to say, where am I spending my time? So when you think about where you spend your time, this is me. I did a time motion analysis for about a month or two when I was running my own innovation hub. And I thought, where am I spending my time? Like I literally did minute by minute timesheets. And so what you can see here is a split. The helpful thing about doing something like this is when you go to resourcing and you say, I need a body to do X. An innovation hub can operate on anywhere from a smaller co-working space maybe on 0.7 FTE if they don't keep the doors open all the time and run on volunteers, to 2.7 up to 5 to 10 FTE on some of the bigger models. So it really helps to understand, well, where am I spending my time? And also, if you track this, just rough guess, you can say, ooh, maybe I need to spend a bit more on strategic leadership or promotion because I'm spending so much time on ops and things like that. Where are your costs? Again, this is just from a sample size of one, but it reflects on quite often what I see as far as operations, which includes staffing, and about 90% of that's in my staffing. Then the facilities, which includes rent, and quite often on some funded models, you use peppercorn rent and kind of funny money, but it really helps to kind of apply real numbers there. And then services, like just basic keeping the lights on and taking out the trash, that kind of stuff. And my revenue. And again, this is really where the split changes between, some people rent out and hire out their venue, other times they offer for free. But that split between membership and programs, and the more you become an innovation hub, quote unquote, the more you rely on your programs, corporate sponsorship, but then you got to resource up for it and continually then try and find grants and things like that. So all of that then means you have a gap. Like almost every innovation hub, if it's a proper innovation hub, I've found is operating at a deficit between $50,000 and up to $500,000 a year. When I say deficit, that's the primary subsidized gap between some form of university, corporate, venture cap, philanthropic, something that's subsidizing that cost. And sometimes you run into smaller operators that say, oh no, we're doing fine. I say, great, what's your salary? We're not taking what? Okay, well, that's your gap, and typically 70 to 120K of what you'd expect for a director of an operation like that. So this is really helpful, I found, to say it's not a loss. It's not like you're just lighting a match to this. You are buying something depending on what that funding operator is. That funding operator then is typically one of the 5 sources: government, uni, corporate, or commercial, venture cap, or philanthropic. And these guys want something for that money. The government wants economic development. University wants student engagement and R&D, and corporates want R&D and marketing. Venture capital wants ROI. Philanthropic wants some sort of impact, which then all of that intent guides the direction. And it's very rare to find a pure model. They're hybrids. You can be running a government one, which then partners with corporates and maybe gets some university students in there and runs a VC program and accelerator and on and on. And so I'm sharing models, which again, you guys could probably teach me, twice as much as I know on this stuff. And so then just a couple of last slides, which is in Kate's report that she mentioned. So I encourage you to download that. This is the growth of incubators in Australia. The main thing I want to get across here is that we lived through, for those of us that have been in from 2012, 2015 or so, we lived through a phenomenon. There's absolutely no getting around it. 2015, the ideas boom had an impact. States and territories followed suit. $1.1 billion plus Advanced Queensland and LaunchVic, et cetera, et cetera. We had an explosion of spaces and programs and funding, et cetera. And then 2018, 2019, we started seeing a slowing already because those 3-year funding started slowing down. And then 2019, boom, we had the COVID, which then took out a lot of our zombies, people that weren't financially viable and were struggling. And now we've got a real strong base to draw from. Plus, we also have saturation. Plus, around that time, 2012, 2015, we started seeing the big box brands come in, your WeWorks and your ServCorps and your Victories, which then started eating up some of the smaller players. And again, this is an imperfect model in that, spaces could come in and leave when I don't see them. So it's always a bit in flux, but this in general is the trend. Final slide I'll show is then, so how have we gone for entries and exits? Again, a slide from, which is much prettier in Kate's report. But this shows that growth of entries and exits of spaces for incubators and co-working. 2018, we were literally opening up 10 innovation hubs a month on average, sometimes up to 12 to 15. But then 2020, between 2019 and 2020, I believe we said in the report, we lost about 56% of all hubs that were out of all the losses in the last 10 years, over half of them happened in those 2 years of COVID. But all that to say is we do have a resilient ecosystem, a strong base to draw from. So now what do we do with it? How do we connect it? How do we specialize and grow on it? With that in mind, the last thing I'll briefly show you, and I'll put this link in, is for the Global Entrepreneurship Congress, which hopefully everybody's going to come to 19th to 22nd of September, 4,000 people from around the world coming along with incubator operators. And we have a challenge app, which is collecting ideas for challenges. And in here we have one specific to incubators. How do we improve incubator quality, specialization, and connections? And how do we create inclusive incubation? I think we have some things in there for measuring as well. And then for each one of these, there's additional details on what we mean by that challenge, and you can put your ideas against it in order to advance it forward and then work with a global audience on advancing those. So conscious of time, so I won't go into too much detail, but I'll put that in the link and I will put it in a follow-up email so you can see more. I'm going to pause there and I will send out those slides and everything else after. For the last 10 minutes, I want to open this up and a few things I would love to know. Any comments on the conversations we had and reflections, as well as where to from here. And feel free to put in the chat as well. Do we want to keep going? How frequently do we want to meet? For those Queensland mob, how do we connect you with third-party providers? And maybe how do we collectively get together to advance some of those conversations to make your investment in those as effective as possible? I'll stop there. Feel free to either raise your hand and I can call on you or open up the mic and we can go that way. It's up to you. Asrar.
Hi, thanks. One of the things that was quite evident in that report was we do not have science and tech parks. So, I mean, no wonder we lose half of the companies to Silicon Valley. And if we want to, and that's the proposition at the moment going on at federal level, we would like to bring them back. That's the first thing we need to do. We have to ensure a university and infrastructure needs to be there that would actually promote and enable both from resources perspective as well. Have we had ever any opportunities in that area? Was there something that happened in previous years before I came to the scene?
I'm keen to hear from others. As far as tech parks, I think we're just now getting into proper precincts, kind of larger type institutions. We've seen some like collections of businesses come together, and there's been a lot of early clustering type activity that's been attempted. But my observation is hit and miss, but keen to hear others. Before we get to that, Richard, feel free to answer that as well as ask your question as well.
I can't answer. That's not an area where I can answer, so I'll leave that and then I'll come back to my question.
Yeah, no worries. Go for it, Richard.
So I've had the pleasure of actually participating as an advisor, mentor, or contributor to about 7 or 8 incubator programs, and I understand your definition of incubator, but actually thinking about it from the customer's perspective, one of the customer's perspective, the poor people that are trying to set up their business and grow their business. I'm interested within this forum. There seems to be, in all the experiences that I've had, there's a lack of understanding about what stages the spaces provide, what their syllabus are, or how they actually support. It seems to be really quite varied, and there's no common understanding actually about what stage people are at. So even in this conversation, I've heard of the new thing called pre-accelerator and a pre-accelerator. People have talked about incubation as a syllabus. I actually think the ecosystem here needs to also concentrate on what are the stages here, because some spaces focus very specifically on almost a very, very early stage, others on really the investor ready and the scaling of ideas phase. And when they blend them, from having been a participant in the space, both from the founder stage and from the advisor stage, there is quite a bit of conflict and poor reputation for the space providers from actually what is the promise and what is being offered. So rather than looking at it as almost an industry, I think there's a part about what is the value proposition of this collective. And I think that I don't know what the answer is, but I'd actually love to get involved in a conversation about how that can be better structured to serve the needs of the people that wish to take an idea through to a business.
Well, that's good, Richard. And there has been a conversation in the past as far as mapping out by stages. Can one incubator handle across the stages? Max, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I'd like to add defining the incubators and stages is also, I think we should define startups. When we talked to a few stakeholders in Queensland and Brisbane and asked what's a startup, they had people like Vaxis in mind who just went for Series B and are all big, but are a startup compared to a CSL. When I speak about startups, it's the mom and pop and dog that want to run their life science project in the life science now separately, be aside their work. That's a startup. If you're 20 people, you're not a startup anymore. Well, you are by definition. And again, where do you fit? So what's a startup and where does it fit in your programs, right? And where are the stages and what are the incubators that might be the right ones for you, or accelerators for that matter?
Yeah, it's a good point, Max. And I know that the Innovation Metrics Review Board way back in 2018 to 2020, they were going, maybe before, struggle with that. And that can vary depending on state territory. I've got a pretty firm definition myself. I think maybe that's one of the things with this collective even is to just getting clear on some of the definitions, clear on what we mean by stages, and getting clarity on kind of the cultural history and the narrative around the growth of the ecosystem as well. My own definition of startup is, just anything that's, that potential for fast growth. Like startup is a definite type of entrepreneur, and then you have entrepreneurs which are separate. But yeah, it's definitely a conversation. Susan, might go over to you because you have your hand raised.
Okay. I guess it's more of just a comment coming from the university perspective. The thing that we're seeing right now is a real step change in terms of grants and funding. So grants and funding are really pushing towards research translation acceleration. And that means that we need to look at our research and innovations that are going out and feeding into the ecosystem much more aggressively. So those traditional kinds of grants we're seeing less and less of, and we're seeing the others. So I think that would go into that pre-pre accelerator, because you have pressure on universities that are really looking at their impact and how they're going to respond to this kind of shift in the funding criteria. So it's just more of a comment of what might, feed the ecosystem a bit more. We're mapping it out. I can tell you at RMIT, we're definitely looking at that. And we're looking and following very clearly where certain grant structures have just completely disappeared.
Thanks for that, Susan. And one of the things that I remember reflecting on over in Boulder when I visit over there is just the distinction between the lack of funding at the earlier stage. Everybody kind of, the funding tends to lean towards that higher end scale up, vote getting validation piece, which then impacts on the pipeline of early people coming through.
We submitted some comments to the government on that in terms of what the scheme should look like. And it was exactly that. First of all, what is the definition of a startup? How early? What do they have to show? I felt like some of the cutoffs that they were putting were so high that you were never going to get the early startups who could ever participate in those programs. So we definitely submitted a couple of pages of our comments on what the new kind of funding structure should look like.
Sam, did you still have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just want to circle back to what Richard said about the stages. Really, really a spot on point. And there has been a lot of research about science park and clusters and the life cycle of those entities, but there's not been a lot of discussion around the life cycle or stages of the ecosystem, which, as we all know, ecosystem is nothing. It's not a new concept. It's just standing on the shoulder of other related entities and concepts like clusters and science park. So I think as a community of practice, maybe we can even aim in some point in time to initiate a project to map all the incubators or ecosystem around Australia and identify what the stages they are and what type of startup they support. Because if I am in a startup, well, I could be, I could require very different funding, maybe pre-seed or pre-seed, as we heard today, or I need Series B or Series C. So very different. And then where is the information? So that would be an interest. And I know Chad has been doing a lot of interesting mapping in the past. So I don't know if there is any appetite left in that front, but could be a nice future project for all of us to aim for.
And where is Sam? Thanks for that. Peter, we'll give you 30 seconds just for the end.
Okay, just one thing I want to throw in there in that grid that you had, and I'll put it in the comments, is that a big differentiator between, say, an incubator or a space and an accelerator for me is the business model. And the business model in an accelerator is that I have a bunch of money that I'm getting from someone else. I'm investing into these businesses to try and make what I've bought of that business worth more. And I live and die off that. It's a very different business model to a space. And I think it shows up in the way that we tend to talk about, even in this conversation around what an accelerator is. I'm a pre-accelerator. That means that I'm, in the way it seems like it's being talked about, I'm delivering content to teams at a pre-accelerator level, and I'm delivering content that I think is to an accelerator level, which is very different than actually running an accelerator. So I think there's something to tease apart in that.
Thanks for that, Pete. Sounds like a conversation for next time. I will set up a date, likely in about 2 weeks. See how that fits for everybody's schedule. Just keep momentum going here. We'll get a cadence that works for us. I know some people couldn't make it because it was a short time. That's 2 weeks. Just quick nod, thumbs up. Is that too soon? Is that all right? A couple of thumbs up. Yeah, cool. Medium. We'll give it a shot. See how we go. This has all been an experiment. Feel free to ping me back on emails or LinkedIn. And just thank you so much, everybody, for rocking up. And we'll address specifically some of the Marshall, I'll email out the links as a response to everybody. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.